Hey, read through the word. Today is June 2nd. Yes, here we are in the month of June. So we've gone through 5 months of the Bible. January, February, March, April, May. Yes, 5 months because we're in month 6. So we're almost halfway done. So this is actually, I would use this time right now to invite people to join us in Read Through the Word, because you're hitting summer months. And you might have friends that aren't wrapped up in the school schedule right now, and their time is a little bit more relaxed than normal. And here's the thing. No matter what time of the year, we're all going to use an excuse of why we don't have time to read the Bible. But, so this is a great time. So invite people. I'll tell you this in now, and I will tell you again in September, because that's a great time, because we hit the New Testament then. And then another time is actually December, like when you get late in the year, because it gets people established in the routine before January starts. And so they've got that routine. So great time. Now, this week, I will probably say this a few times this week because I'm feeling a little scatterbrained right now. And I just realized I messed up my notes. I referenced the wrong verse, but you'll understand. So my verse says Proverbs 10, I think it says 10, 15, and 16, and it was supposed to be Proverbs 20, and not 10. So it is, I might have time to go back in and fix it. But this is all on school teacher mode this week. Yes, my school year is over, but I made the decision to go back to school. And at 53 years old, I have started my master's. Always thought I would be getting a seminary degree, but I'm getting my master's in education. And so I'm getting a master's in education and English education. So my brain is all in that mode right now because I've been writing papers and all the stuff for my class. And so I am in big school teacher mode right now and education. And it really does apply to what's going on in our reading this week. So first, we're going to look at, your lesson is called The Sayings of the Wise. And we are in Proverbs. Now, this is why I'll go back and change that. That it is Proverbs 20, 15, and 16 says this: wise words are more valuable than much gold and many rubies. And then it says, get security from someone who guarantees a stranger's debt. Get a deposit if he does for foreigners. And you're like, what? What does that have to do with anything? That's exactly why we're going to talk about this today. So this is called The Sayings of the Wise. And I'm really going to go through how this is organized. It seems like a bunch of random. But it's not. Remember, guidelines. Guidelines. And this is where Solomon has organized the sayings of the wise, wisdom statements. And we need to understand a little bit about structure in the written language in order for this to make sense. And so that's what I'm going to do, is I'm going to step into teacher mode of the things I did this. I did this in my Sunday school class this morning. So I'm recording on a Sunday afternoon. I did it this morning. I always dip into school teacher mode and discuss some of those things because I think a lot of times, many of us, when we were taught those things back in school, we weren't paying attention. I have people tell me all the time, if you were my school teacher, I would have. And I said, can I tell you, I have students now and they don't. Someone told you that and you forgot. Or it really did, you didn't. We're going to go into cognitive development here. You didn't understand why it mattered. So you sort of let it go in one ear and out the other. But this is why I love English. the language, the structure of language is for this purpose right here, is to read scripture. And so what we're looking at is, in the book of Proverbs, couplets are the primary literary device. I speak in literary device terminology, used to convey wisdom and insights. They are 2-line verses, just like you see. We just read. You read 2 lines, then you read 2 lines. Then you'll read 2 lines, and they seem disconjointed and a lot of things. So we're looking at couplets of poetry. Remember, Hebrew poetry, so it's not going to rhyme because it's not written in English. And so what you see is that the second line of the couplet often expounds upon or contrasts with or rephrases the ideas from the first line. It puts it in one way and then puts it in another so you can understand it. So, a lot of times, so when you look at these sayings of the wise, the couplets, you're looking at like moral lessons or advice or observations about life, looking at the importance of wisdom, of following guidelines to make good choices and the consequences of foolish choices. And so that's what the sayings of the wise are. So if you look at the couplets in Proverbs, you'll look at a few different things. The first thing you look at is parallelism. Thinking about parallel lines. So you launch into math here. Parallel lines are 2 lines that run equal distance from each other at all times. Because if the distance ever changes, they cross, and they are no longer parallel lines. They are intersecting lines. Well, parallel structure is the same thing. Parallelism is the concept that 2 lines are related to each other in some way, meaning they don't make sense apart from each other. You need the parallel. They run together, and for you to understand one line and the next, you need both. And so when you look at parallelism, you've got 3 different types of parallelism. You've got synonymous parallelism, which means the second line restates or reinforces the ideas in the first line, usually sometimes using different wording. And then Proverbs 19:29 is an example of a synonymous parallelism. Judgments are prepared for scorners and stripes for the backs of fools. You see exactly parallel structure in both, which means parallel parts of speech. And then you have antithetic parallelism, which means the second line actually contrasts or opposes the line in the first, highlighting the difference between good and bad choices. So an example of that would be Proverbs 10:1. A wise son makes a father glad, but a foolish son is a shame to his mother. That a next type of parallelism it could be is synthetic parallelism, which means the second line completes the thought in the first line, and it helps you understand it more. An example would be where was it? I lost my example. I'll pull it back up. But then when you look at the parallelism, and then you have, with those parallelism, you still have those types of couplets as well. So you've got a contrast couplet, which means you have one statement and then you have a conjunction to help to switch that. So like but or yet, to help further that thought, to contrast it. And then you have, just like you have a synonymous parallelism, you have a synonymous couplet. And it's the second line is repeating the same information using similar words and phrases, sort of like repeating it so we get it. Remember, these are guidelines for life. These are guidelines for wisdom. So if we don't get the first one, maybe the second one will go, oh, I get it. And then there are also motivational couplets, which means the second line explains the reason or the consequences to the first one. Like, motivational couplet is Proverbs 13:20. It says, walk with wise men and you will be wise, for a companion of fools suffers harm. So, like, this is why you should do this, because if you don't do this, this is what happens. Wisdom leads you this direction. Foolishness leads you this. So, we have all these couplets, and Lisa, you're making my head spin, and I didn't want English the first time I had it. Why are you making me do this? Because there's a purpose for this, or it wouldn't be written this way. God did this for a reason. Now, we might not ever understand that, or we might live in a time where there have been many scholarly nerds before us that help us understand these things. We live in that time where we can see what is the purpose of the couplets in the Proverbs. One thing is that to teach wisdom. Remember, wisdom, wisdom, wisdom. Guidelines, guidelines, guidelines. Proverbs use couplets to teach wisdom and to guide readers towards virtuous behavior. Remember, we've talked virtue and vice before, but this is the purpose. The second purpose is to highlight consequences, like positive and negative. If you do this, this will happen. If you do this, this will happen. And so you want to make wise decisions, because this is where foolishness leads, folly. And we don't want to do that. Remember, guidelines for life. And another reason they're written in couplets is memorization. There are short, memorable format of couplets. They help readers remember and internalize the lessons that they contain. They're easy. Pride goeth before a fall, a haughty spirit before destruction. With the other one, train up a child in the way he should go, and when he is old, he will not depart from it. These are easy ones for us to memorize because they're written that way. Another one is the general guide, the whole purpose of all of the Proverbs. Focus on general principles. Proverbs give us general guidelines about life, not specific guarantees, acknowledging, you know what? Life is complex. And there is a exception for everything. And so that's what the Proverbs, the couplets do for us. They are what the couplets in Proverbs do is like, this is a powerful and effective way to convey wisdom and practical guidelines. Guidelines, guidelines, guidelines. Guidelines for living a meaningful, fulfilling, and godly life. See you next time on Read Through the Word.